intersect with Pakistan's economic agenda, and how do you believe that it might impact it?
Well, I mean, I think, you have covered both geopolitics and geoeconomics, and there's a clear intersection between the two, and they're absolutely intertwined. The reality is, as far as our leadership is concerned, they have taken it forward with a view, and I would say very successfully, to bring the two nations together on a face-to-face dialogue, and this has happened after 50 years. So I think that in itself is a big feat, because if we all believe that dialogue and diplomacy is the way forward, then I think that was the first right step. And it's not my quote; it's some diplomat's quote, which I do repeat, because I think it brings the whole essence very clearly in terms of where we are in the process. That diplomacy is a process and it's not an event. Mm-hmm. Now, having said that, whatever is happening, including Pakistan, everyone is affected. We in Pakistan are dealing with the first order impact of the conflict, sort of month and a half into it, and in that first order, we have had to deal with the procurement of the molecules across asset classes, pricing transmission from blanket subsidy to targeted subsidy, dealing with logistics, timeframes, etc. So, as we think about second order, third order, it's going to be a direct function of the duration and the intensity. And therefore, whatever our leadership is trying to do with the key stakeholders, I think is not only very, very critical for Pakistan, but I will say for the region, and quite frankly, being here this week, for the world.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So, as you know, we've seen a number of signs of macroeconomic stabilization in Pakistan in recent months. Inflation having come down, foreign reserves having come up. The ADB is just the latest entity to give a positive outlook for Pakistan. It recently released projections of 3.5% growth in fiscal year 2026, increasing to 4.5% in fiscal year 2027. But of course, as we all know, the global economic climate is extremely turbulent, and the IMF just this week lowered its growth forecast for Pakistan for the next fiscal year because of the war in Iran. So Pakistan is looking to maintain its current growth momentum, which to me strikes me as some of the most encouraging for its economy that we've seen in some time, even as global economic shocks, including the war in Iran, pose what seem to be some of the greatest risks for its economy that we've seen in some time. So my question is, how can Pakistan continue on its growth path and foolproof its economy, which is strengthened but remains vulnerable from all these global shocks and uncertainty?
Yeah, I think, coming into this sort of crisis and war-like situation, given that we have been on the path of macroeconomic stability, and you have just mentioned some of those indices, we came into this sort of war-like situation with pretty robust buffers, both on the fiscal side and on the external side. Having said that, as I said, is how do we go forward? And we are doing all our sensitivities at this point in time. In fact, the governor is just walking in. We do it in conjunction with the central bank in terms of reviewing our inflation and growth, the elasticity with respect to export and remittances, looking at our fixed income and equity flows. So we are reviewing all of that. But the reality is, Michael, that at this point in time, things are holding up, right? In March, we had remittance flow of about $3.8 billion. And this was about roughly $500 to $600 million higher than what we saw in February. Now, the latest forecast that we have is that we were estimating our remittances to be about 42. Our latest estimate is probably be around 41.5. So yes, it's going to be impacted in the short term, but not a major impact. The other thing, we had an event here yesterday on Russian digital account, which is a more investment-led discussion into Pakistan. It's a different flow from and different client segment from remittances. And again, in March, we had the single largest flow in the history of Russian digital account. I think it topped about $260 million, and our latest estimate shows that probably April is going to be even higher than that. So I think while a lot of this, we are reviewing, and whether the growth rate is now going to be around 4%. Previously, we expected it to be slightly over 4%, around 4.2, 4.25%, also in line with the central bank surveys. We are still quite confident that the growth will come around that, and we are still quite confident that our primary surplus and our overall reserve situation is going to be in line what we have set to the market and what we have committed to the fund.
Thank you. I want to come back to your comment about the digital initiatives. Those are important. I wanted to speak about the status of the reforms programs. You and I were both at Harvard this weekend. You spoke there at a conference on Pakistan, and you had said that Pakistan knows the what and why of reforms, but it struggled with the how. So I guess the question for you, many, if not all governments in Pakistan will talk about the importance of reforms and passing structural reforms. What gives you confidence that Pakistan will be able to sustain the current reform momentum beyond this current IMF program? And linked to that, if you could provide an update on a significant reform that started a few months ago when steps were taken to start the privatization of the Pakistan National Airliner, which is long seen as a milestone. So if you can give an update on that as well.
Indeed, indeed. So first of all, vis-a-vis our structural reform agenda, it's not in a design phase, it's now implementation, execution. We talked about taxation and everything that we are doing there in terms of people, process, technology transformation. Then the whole SOEs and what we are doing there, and I'll come back to that in a moment with respect to the privatization agenda, because there are 28 SOEs which have now been handed over to the Privatization Commission. And those which are just not going to work out, we are also in the process of closing them. The other is the energy reform. I think on the power side, we are well on our way. And part and parcel of that is the privatization part. And then everything that we are doing, I would say, in the public finance space, right? Whether it's the pension reforms, whether it's the right sizing of the federal government, in terms of how we have merged ministries and how we've closed down certain departments, and then what we are doing in terms of debt management, because that is very, very clear that debt servicing is one of the largest expense items for us. So we are reforming our debt management and bringing it essentially to the 20th, 21st century in terms of front office, middle office, back office, investor relations, etc. Let's talk about the privatization side, because that's one area which we had not done well in the first year of the administration. But with the privatization of the First Women Bank, and more importantly, the privatization of PIA, indeed has given us the tailwinds. And the reason I talk about PIA, and then we'll talk about other things which are in the pipeline, is that it ticks a lot of boxes. And before we can talk about FDI and the foreign investment, you need to instill confidence into your local investors. And you saw two large conglomerates bidding, and collectively they bid close to $1.2 billion. And of course, one of them, took that forward. So I think it was, it ticked so many boxes, and it's sort of given us the tailwinds, because it's also, are we walking the talk? Because when the privatization is not happening, they say, okay, the administration is actually not serious about it. So only yesterday, the Privatization Commission, and you can see there's a public announcement, the three DISCOs, distribution companies, and their EOIs are now going to go out. The sell-side advisors, Alvarez and Marcel. Then we have two FIs which are in the works, the outsourcing of the airports, starting with Islamabad airport and then very quickly moving on to Lahore and Karachi. All of these are planned and in the works for this calendar year.
Well, thank you for that. I want to turn now to some questions about donor relationships. Earlier this month, Pakistan announced that it would be repaying a $3.5 billion loan to the UAE. And this surprised many observers because, of course, the UAE is a key donor of Pakistan. Typically, loans have been rolled over. So can you tell us why Pakistan made that decision and how it intends to make up for that loss of that $3.5 billion, which I believe equates to nearly 20% of Pakistan's total foreign reserve holdings in its central bank? And also, there's been some reportage that Saudi Arabia and Qatar might be announcing new assistance. So if you could comment, if you can tell us anything about that as well.
Okay. No, I think it's quite timely because we made some announcements last night. So I think now we can talk very openly about it. In the first instance, now I'm talking being an ex-banker. In any creditor-borrower relationship, on maturity, if the creditor says, I want the money back, and then as a responsible borrower, you ensure that it is paid in full and on time. That's what we did with the Eurobond last week, $1.4 billion. And with respect to, we are very grateful to all our bilateral partners who have supported us through thick and thin and for the longest time. But if one of the partners says, I think the maturities are there and we would want to be repaid, is their right. We respect that. And therefore, we are going to make the payment. Now, after meeting with Excellency Al-Jadaan, the Saudi Finance Minister, yesterday evening, so last night we have gone public in terms of additional support, which is coming from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It is coming essentially through two means. One is additional $3 billion of deposits, which are being committed by the Kingdom. And the existing $5 billion with the Kingdom, which was being rolled over on an annual basis, is now going to have an extended maturity of 3 years. So this, plus a combination of commercial resources, is just going to enable us to stay, first of all, ensure that there are timely payments, and secondly, ensure that what we said are going to be our FX reserves by end of this month, more importantly by end of June, which is about $18 billion, that we stand committed and will ensure that that happens. And that brings us to roughly about 3 months of import cover, which is international benchmark.
Okay. Thank you for that. Let's now turn to something that you had briefly alluded to before. I know you take a strong personal interest in it, and it's certainly of great interest to many of us here at the Atlantic Council and beyond, and that is the use of digital innovations, tech innovations, particularly to help finance challenges in the health and development sectors more broadly. And Pakistan, of course, has been ramping up these digital technologies, using DPI to bolster social protection. So can you tell us about some of the recent initiatives that you've undertaken in this regard, and might there be lessons here from Pakistan's experiences for other countries in the region and beyond?
Sure. Actually, later this week, we are showcasing digital journey of Pakistan. It's been being supported by the World Bank Group, and we were asked to come in terms of what so far the progress has been. And you see, when we talk about digital, I just look at it very simply, in very simple terms, is faster, cheaper, better. And whether it's our remittance flows, whether it's what we are doing in terms of reformation of our tax authority, so more automation, more end-to-end digitalization, less human interaction, less leakage, which is an euphemism for corruption. And then in terms of how we are dealing even in the current crisis, because we moved from blanket subsidies to now target subsidies, right, as we did go through with full transmission. And the best way we could have done it is transmitting it, and we have the CEO of Bank of Punjab and Chairman of Pakistan Bank Association sitting here in the audience, Mr. Zafar Masood, is that is being done through digital wallets. And the reason I want to bring it to the current scenario is that what we have seen, that where people have done physical interventions in the last 6 to 7 weeks, for example, trying to do rationing at petrol stations, gas stations, we have seen law and order situations. And the best thing in terms of targeted subsidy is that, first of all, with full transmission, you do demand management, demand destruction, and through target subsidy, and that through digital wallets and conveying it through digitally, it gets to the recipient, and we are sure that it gets to the right areas which are vulnerable. So at this point in time, we are very focused on two-wheelers, so people who have motorbikes and motorcycles, public transportation in terms of buses and trucking, and then agriculture, where we are very focused on small farmers, people who have acreages less than 25 years, and again through Kisan cards, Hari cards, this is being transmitted